Create and modify assemblies. After completing this video, you will be able to create assemblies, modify subassembly properties, modify assembly properties. Before you can build a 3D model of your roadway design, you must have an alignment, a profile, and a typical cross-section, which is also known as an assembly in Civil 3D. To create an assembly, you'll go to the Home tab, Create Design panel, expand Assemblies, and select Create Assembly. It's going to allow you to give it a name and then an assembly type, which can be a crowned road, undivided or divided, a planar road, undivided or divided, a railway, or other. I'm going to do an undivided crowned road. Next, I'll select the assembly style that I want to use and the code set. The code set is vital when you want to set things with hatching or no shading. I'm going to select my all codes with hatching. Then I'll click OK. At the command line, it's going to ask you to set the baseline location. This is simply the plus symbol, which applies itself to both the alignment and the profile for the design. When I click a point, you'll notice it zooms me in on that point, and you can see where it's going to apply itself vertically across that horizontal line and horizontally in that vertical line. If I zoom out, you'll notice that it just zoomed me in automatically, and I can look at my entire drawing or zoom back into that assembly. Now I need to add sub-assemblies to that assembly. Luckily, there's a number of different sub-assemblies that come default with the software. You'll access these by going to the Home tab, Palettes panel, and click the Tool Palettes. Within the tool palettes, there are a number of different civil design assemblies already for you. Everything from shoulders to medians, curbs, daylights, and so on. To decide which sub-assemblies to use, a quick, easy way to find out what each one does is to right-click on one of the options and click on Help. This will bring up the help system specific to that subassembly. For instance, this conditional cut or fill assembly automatically applies various subassemblies such as generic links, widening, ditching, or daylight subassemblies to an assembly based on whether a cut or fill condition exists. And you can read more about it by scrolling through the help. It shows you a nice picture of what happens when you use it, as well as the different conditions for it. It also describes the different components and how you'll use each one. It contains input parameters, target parameters, output parameters, the different behaviors, and the point, link, and shape codes. The point, link, and shape codes are what the software will use to build a surface from that assembly when it's done. For my assembly, I'm going to start by adding a lane. If I click the stack of tabs of that tool palette, I can select the Lanes tab, even if I can't see it. Then I'll choose one of my lane options. I'll just use the basic lane super elevation AOR. It's going to bring up the Properties palette, where at the bottom of that palette I can set the parameters for that lane. Notice that it's defaulting to the right side with a width of 12 and a slope of -2%. It also sets the depth for the pavement, depth 1 and 2, the base depth, the sub-base depth, and so on. When I have set my parameters according to the project requirements, I'll select that assembly marker, and it doesn't matter where I select on there, it will automatically apply that subassembly to the center point of that marker. Next, I can add additional assemblies. By going to the conditional, I can add the conditional cut or fill assembly. And you'll notice that the side is set to the right side. The layout width, layout grade, and the type of cut or fill is also there. If I want to have it in a cut position, I'll zoom in and select where I want to apply that conditional assembly. Clicking on the circle will automatically connect it to the edge of pavement. Then I may need to add a daylight assembly. To add in a ditch, I'll use the daylight basin. And the daylight basin will allow me to put a force slope, how wide I want that force slope, the basin depth, and the basin slope, as well as the basin width and berm width. When it's in a cut slope or a fill slope, I can set those separately and continue adding all of my materials. When I zoom in on the circle connecting that conditional assembly, it will connect my daylight to that option. If I want a symmetrical assembly, I can select all of my subassemblies, then right-click and select Mirror from the flyout menu. It'll ask me to select the assembly to mirror across. I'll select that assembly, and it makes a perfect mirror of what I have on the right side. To make copies of my assembly, I'll use just the general AutoCAD copy command, but I only select the assembly marker, and I'll press Enter. Then I'll select a point of displacement and place that marker somewhere near it. This allows me to change parameters according to my needs. So for instance, if I need to change the parameters for this subassembly, I can select the Properties option from the contextual ribbon, and it'll bring up the properties that we saw earlier when we first added that subassembly. Now I can put in the minimum distance of 1 foot and a maximum distance of 100. And each of those assemblies will act differently according to my design. If I'd like to see my assembly in a different way, I can change the assembly style so that I either see hatching or I don't see any hatching, or I don't have any shading. To do that, I select the assembly, then in the contextual ribbon that appears, click Assembly Properties. On the Codes tab, I can select the code set that I want to use. I can choose my all codes with no shading and then click OK. And you can see that now my style looks slightly different, where I'm not showing the shading inside of that assembly. In the bottom assembly, I want to change that subbase hatch. So if I select that assembly, then in the contextual ribbon, go to the Assembly Properties. On the Codes tab, I can change the codes that I'm using. And in fact, for the All Codes set, I'm going to change the All Codes with Hatching style by clicking on the button next to it. Then, in the Shape area, I'll change the subbase style by clicking the option next to it, and I'll select a strip hatch and click OK. When I click OK again and click OK, you'll notice that the subbase hatch is now an earth hatch instead of a shading.